Good evening, everyone from India. Good afternoon and good morning if you're not in India. I'm pleased to announce the grand finale of MRSI's session held for the International Market Research Day 2023, hosted by ISOMA. In many ways, you might say we were saving the best for the last. We have a fantastic panel for you today who will be discussing, is single source the panacea of media planning efficiency? With us today, we have Amrutha Nair, Head Entertainment, Ad Sales and Strategy, Disney Star. We have Anushree Ghosh, GM Digital Marketing at ITC. Bhaskar Ramesh, Director Omnichannel Business at Google. Kartik Sharma, CEO Omnicom. Pratham Hegde, Director and Head of Marketing Sciences at Meta, India. Tejas Apte, GM Media South Asia from Unilever. Vivek Malhotra, Group CMO, COO, Consumer Revenue, India Today Group. And last, but definitely not least, we have our moderator, Dolly, an industry leader. Over to you, Dolly.
Thank you, Mitali, and hi, everybody. As Mitali said, we have a fantastic panel here today. And I must say that the topic that we are discussing is really a hot topic, something which is being discussed in the India market for at least 5 years, if not last 8 years for sure. Okay. I do want to start by giving a little bit of context. India is world's largest measured multimedia market. I focus on the word measured. We are measuring ourselves for certain media. The reason I call it a multimedia market is that we've got whopping 800 million plus television audiences. We've got 400 million plus digital video watching audiences. The number is touching close to 500, or would have touched 500 now. We've got about 200 to 300 million print audiences, right? So it's big numbers is what we're really looking at. What we've also seen is that during the time of COVID, we're all aware that there was a change in audiences' behavior, right? We saw a lot of audiences really moving to the digital medium, for whatever activities that they wanted to pursue, whether it was e-com or, whether it was telemedicine and things like that. And what we've also seen is that there has been a recalibration in terms of how advertisers are spending their monies, right? They have done a hard evaluation in terms of, what should be the kind of monies which should be allocated between television and digital and print and outdoor and things like that. India has seen a massive growth of digital for sure. But having said that, television continues to be very strong in India still. Okay. I also want to call out that while we've seen the digital medium growing by leaps and bounds, if I just look at the share of measured impressions, the big publishers would really be accounting for nearly 50 to 60% of measured impressions, right? So if you just look at the headroom for others to grow, there is there is a fair bit of wriggle room and headroom which is there. With this kind of multimedia landscape, I think it is imperative that we need to have a very effective cross-media, planning mechanism. And one of the topic which keeps on coming up is that do we need to have a single source? How do we go about doing cross-media and things like that? I must also call out in this forum that cross-media has always been a difficult venture to pursue across the world. Let's face it, okay? There are attempts which have been made. There are some successes. As I understand, I think there are about 10 markets or more where there is a cross-media ad measurement which is on. Cross-media content measurement is happening in I think less than 5 countries. That's what my information suggests. So cross-media around the world has not been an easy topic, right? I think we're lucky to have a very impressive panel today. So we've got all the industry stalwarts who are here, and I want to get straight into the panel. And for my first round, I really want to ask them by, just warming them up by asking a question that if they have to describe in one sentence, that what is the key challenge that you are facing with respect to media investments, that's for advertisers, and for others it is really what is the key challenge that you're really hearing from clients, advertisers, and how would you really describe it? So Anushree, can we please start with you?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So I think the topic of the discussion is pretty much the most burning topic that is, the most pressing discussion that we have across agencies and probably advertisers like us, perhaps. So I think it is not just a single currency of measurement across platforms like traditional and digital. Also within digital, there are so many walled gardens. How do you really have a single view of the consumer's journey? Those are the two burning questions or very important parts of probably driving a solve for when it comes to media strategy. And then what follows essentially is how do you really consistently withhold branded creative reach, given that digital as a platform, there are too many unknowns in terms of its evolution, and there is something new that keeps coming up, and it's really in its evolving stage. So how do you really withhold the branded creative reach given the dynamic environment of digital? Are the two pressing questions that probably most media folks or marketing folks will tell you about.
Thank you, Anushree. Tejas, may I please move to you?
Yeah, so I think, sorry, there was a lag in the network. Dolly, if you could be kind enough to repeat the question.
Yeah, my question really is that what is the key challenge that you're really facing with respect to your media investments? In one sentence,
yeah, so I think,
describe that.
Yeah, so I think the challenge that we are facing right now is twofold. First is we have online sales and offline sales. The second is we have online sales, we have online media and offline media. And the biggest challenge that we face is we don't know which drives what. So how much of online drives offline sales. I think online to online is still somewhat doable, but not as transparent as we want. We don't know how much of offline drives online sales or how much of offline drive offline sales. I think when pre-digital world, offline to offline was easy because that's the only thing you could do, and you could immediately see the impact. So I think this attribution of online to offline, both on sales and media, I think is the biggest challenge that we face.
Got it. Thanks, Tejas. Kartik, over to you.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I think there are two parts to this question, who you ask this question to. So if you talk about CMO downwards, I think everyone is interested in knowing the combined reach frequency of various media. The related sub question under that is all impressions, if I were to use the word, is not equal, right? One TV impression is not necessarily equal to a mobile impression, is not equal to say a print impression, so on and so forth. So how do we solve for that? The second stakeholder here will be the, let's say, the CEOs, or actually the real stakeholders, people who put the money. As Tejas rightly pointed out, what is the combination which is giving impact on the business? The business impact being either a sales impact or a market share impact or penetration impact, so on and so forth. And here clearly, while digital has made strides in the last click attribution, we all know it intuitively that that is not the best way to decode what really is happening. So both at the output end, which is reach frequency, and also at the outcome end, which is market share growth or penetration or user growth, both need to be solved for, and they are interlinked.
Sure. Thank you, Kartik. Amrutha, may I move to you, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's interesting that something that worries us is concerning Kartik and Tej, both of them, stakeholders of this industry from an agency perspective as an advertiser point of view. So, original content creators like us at Disney, that has presence in both linear and digital. We in fact consider ourselves, merchants of audience attention. When I say merchants of audience attention, like we provide original content, we entertain our consumers through entertainment content as well as sports content, and different platforms, as all of you would agree, that it delivers different levels of attention, right? And from that perspective, if you see, the challenge that we're facing today is we feel the ecosystem doesn't seem to be acknowledging this. Basically, the difference in consumer experiences across varying platforms and content. And while you ask me one challenge, if I may point out a second challenge that we have faced is India has a very unique challenge for the TV ads business. We don't have common metric that is available. And there exists a huge disparity in pricing within the digital ecosystem itself. And these are the 2 points that come to my mind.
Thank you, Amrutha. I think very pertinent issues that you've raised. Vivek, over to you, please.
Thanks very much. So I think all of us are mirroring the same challenges, and it just depends on which side are you sitting. So as a broadcaster or a publisher, I mean, the big thing that's really happening to us is that we're learning to break away from linearity. So, we can't think like a broadcast operation, which is only running Aaj Tak, or a digital that's running Aaj Tak YouTube channel, aajtak.in, or India Today magazine running just the magazine. So, the real challenge for us is to start thinking really an omni-channel sort of understanding of the consumer. And then after we understand this consumer, how do we translate this into a game plan for the advertiser? So that to us is the real challenge, where we ourselves sort of blurrily understand the consumer. We have a hazy sketch, and when we have to go and talk to all of you here at the buyer level, we have to give you the granularity, we have to give you the segments, and we have to give you the reasons to believe that each one of these media have interrelationship between each other, and they have a reason to be in your plans.
Thank you. Thanks, Vivek. Very fundamental. I think understanding consumer in totality, and you can't really look at them as TV consumer or print consumer only. Yeah, Bhaskar, I will move to you.
Thanks, Dolly. And I'll just take a slightly CEO's perspective. Today, if you look at it, because the user journeys have actually changed so dramatically, digital has actually become a CEO's agenda. Yeah? If you look at many of the traditional companies, they're actually making significant investments in digital first businesses within the same group rather. And so it's really about learning what is the role that, say, media investments make, right, in acquiring their customers, right, in an old way, when you have large capex investments in offline, and there is some marketplaces that are actually driving some level of acquisitions, and you also have your D2C channels, right? So let me give you an example. A CEO of a large retail company whom I spoke to recently said, hey, you know what, 20% of my sales is online, 80% of my sales is offline. Yeah, and within the 20%, maybe 60-70% of the sales are marketplaces, and a very small percentage is D2C. So now, how do I attribute, like, make my investments across all these channels? Because they don't get data from marketplaces. D2C, they have data, but very less amount of data. And offline, they don't even know how to kind of really measure, right, in terms of how to look at it. So coming back to what Tejas's point of view is, that how do you have a more holistic measurement, as digital is increasingly becoming a business channel and not just as a marketing channel for majority of the companies across industry. Globally, digital is already 2/3 of the ad industry. India, it is almost getting to 50% of the industry and growing really fast. So how do we have a more holistic measurement which actually cuts through all the channels and be more consumer-centric and not channel-centric in the way you deploy your media is a problem for a CEO today and a CFO today as much as a CMO.
Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you, Bhaskar. That was very comprehensive. Apologies. Yeah, Pratham, over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Dolly, for having me on the panel. I think one of the big changes that we have seen is if you look at the media investments, a lot of those are now being focused on the performance objective, right? So marketing as a lever to drive business outcomes is getting to be a huge area of importance. And I agree with Bhaskar that it's become a CXO level conversation, because how much you're willing to put behind marketing, both digital and non-digital, and how will you deploy it is becoming an increasingly like a most powerful lever of how fast you can grow, right? Just given the scale of the audiences and the ability of, say, new age companies to be able to reach out. So the question that advertisers are posing to us, both large and small, are really around ROI of media, and how does it compare across different types of channels. And just coming back to the topic of this conversation, which is single source, etc. I suspect because at an ecosystem level, you don't have that kind of infrastructure we needed for input measurement. We probably just fast track to output measurement, and a lot of our advertisers are focusing on outcome measurement and ROI versus worrying so much about input, because honestly the whole infrastructure is broken, right? Like that's something that's very different about the India market as compared to a lot of other markets.
Thanks, Pratham. Thanks for that perspective. So for people who are on this, so all those who are attending on the webinar, you heard about the challenges which are being talked about in the India market. So from cross-media reach to attribution to holistic understanding of consumer, to digital not being just digital actually having a role in the total business of an organization, and what we heard from Pratham, which is all about the impact measurement because of broken input ecosystem, right? So those were some of the challenges. Let's keep moving. So Kartik, do you just want to tell us that how are you as an agency, how are you responding to some of the challenges that you've just heard? If you can just give us a little bit of the glimpse of that.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting and not an easy question to answer. So we're trying to do whatever we can with the best available data. So there are 3-4 levels in which we can address this question. One is we have built our own proprietary system models, which allow us to make multimedia reach estimates, frequency estimates based on the kinds of probability. Our view is that marketing itself, in fact, advertising, I would go on and provocatively say that advertising, someone said this, but advertising works through a chance encounter with the consumer. That essentially means that every decision that you take on advertising is a probabilistic decision, and it is not a deterministic decision. So using that principle, we have built models which allow us to optimize for a given budget or a reach using the various industry tools. So you have the TV measurement, you have digital measurement coming from various companies, then you have some estimates on outdoor, then you have some estimates on radio. You take all the estimates and make the best use of it, because in any system, even if it's a panel based system, there will always be panel error. Even take for example the TV measurement itself. That is stage one. Stage two is to what Amrutha spoke about. We are one of the few agency networks which has done a ton of work in the area of attention. And as I said earlier, one impression on TV is not equal to one impression on, say, radio. And what we do is using, again, proprietary study that we done on this area, we also arrive at what is known as attention adjusted reach and attention adjusted CPMs. So that's a progress which has happened in the last 6 to 8 months. Last but not the least, this is all fine. This is still what I call output. When you have a certain budget, you have a certain challenge. But what Pratham spoke about and Tejas spoke about, we also do a not last click but multi-touch attribution wherever feasible. We've done again about 9 to 10 studies across categories to understand the interaction, which allows us to calculate 4-5 things. One is the ROI by media. Then it also dives down within a certain medium. It can, so if I take TV as an example, I can today understand TV's ROI in my business is X. Then that X can be decomposed into how much is coming from a particular genre 1, genre 2, genre 3. Similarly on digital, overall digital ROI is so much, and can go down to platform level and even format level. And not only that, we are able to calculate, all this is done using deep learning attribution technologies, causal models. We are also able to understand the solus ROI and assisted ROIs. So if I do TV, and this is the question that Tejas was trying to ask, so if I do only TV also impacts, let's say, my print or digital and vice versa. So that equation can be found out. It's not easy, and that's why you have to work with some, we work with some independent, very good high quality data science companies which help us do this. So if you put all these things together on one level, it's, yes, probabilistic based measures of reach and frequency, but you measure rigorously on outcomes wherever possible. Wherever you are not possible, where you cannot get a market share data due to confidentiality or other things, then you have to make good with what is happening. And then of course you check your tracks and other measures, other intermediary measures, and make the best decisions like a pre-post. You also do some tests wherever possible. Digital, of course, we do lots of tests and we learn from each of those. And it's a continuous learning model.
Thanks, Kartik. So I think you gave us a fantastic glimpse of a whole host of things which are really happening at your end. Very fascinating. I think I'll move to Pratham and Bhaskar now. That, can you talk to our audiences on what are some of the initiatives that publishers like you have really taken, to really establish the efficacy of the medium? I know that it's a formidable medium. I think we are beyond that phase when when these kind of things were happening. But I think for the benefit of our audiences, it would be good to really hear from you that what is the kind of stuff that you've really gone, what are the kind of initiatives that you have taken, to show that this is how this medium is so efficient or impactful.
Sure. Bhaskar, if I may go first.
Yeah, please.
Sure. Thanks. This is what we did last year, actually, could be, I think, quite relevant for this panel. So we actually worked with BCG to survey the ecosystem in terms of understanding how advertisers and agencies are measuring media outcomes today. And then we also worked with them to study some of the more sophisticated regions in the world where the most advanced form of measurement exists. Also verticals like gaming, fintech, e-commerce, etc., where they're quite advanced in terms of how they use analytics and data to measure. And we kind of did a rack stack of all measurement methods, tools, platforms, right? So as an outcome of that, there's a report called Measure to Grow. In the audience, who's anybody who's interested in this space can go and look it up online. It's available for the public use. And what we found there, Dolly, was that the most sophisticated, and I would say maybe the top 7 or 8% of our advertisers, even within the country, have moved to measuring incremental outcomes and kind of bypassed some of the traditional ways of measuring. Like even if you look at attribution-based measurement, and Kartik, to your point, it requires us to accurately trace the customer journey, right, across different media. And if you take the concept of walled gardens, TV not being measurable, etc., that kind of becomes a weaker and weaker method as time goes by, especially as you have multiple surfaces coming into play. Also, the question of privacy and our ability to measure individual customer journeys, right, gets harder every year. So the concept of the paper is really about measuring incrementality by creating control exposed scenarios, either at a people level or at a geo level, more sophisticated regression methods like MMMs that we traditionally used to in the CPG industry, but more advanced form of that really, as a combination of these three methods, understand true media ROI, and hence the largest question of how much money where, and how do I kind of benchmark efficiency is a single biggest point of focus. And we hope that this paper has generated a lot of interest in the advertiser measurement ecosystem, and we were able to partner to run pilots across the board, etc. So I think that was one of our biggest investments, Dolly, just creating clarity in a space that's highly cluttered and a little bit complex, and there's too many points of view on what's the right thing to do.
Sure. Thank you, Pratham. Bhaskar, can you just talk to us about the Google initiatives?
Absolutely. I think firstly, I just want to give also slightly more broader global perspective, and then I'll double click on India. We have moved a lot in the way, like, we have literally published the principles, basis which we would love to participate, share, and support cross-media currencies across the world, and a set of guidelines that were endorsed by WFA and ANA, and actually has seen the light of the day in many countries. So if you look at Japan today, has a very strong cross-media single source, which includes YouTube, and it is through a JIC, in that market. It is already ready and it is working really well in sync with the principles that have been laid out. I think UK is underway sometime this year. US is also underway. I think so. There are many countries where any of our principles around being comprehensive, being fair and comparable, being privacy centric, being independent and trustworthy, and actionability for advertisers. And we would love to meet the demands of marketers where their needs are. So I think we have a super clarity on the set of principles which actually supports a third party and a cross media single source globally. But coming to India, of course, as you're saying, it's a hot debated topic over many years. We haven't moved much as an industry here, but we are ready to participate, in the same way, and I hope we move in that direction. In the absence of that, like the way Pratham is talking about incrementality and all those things are available, but I just want to touch upon like 2 or 3 things that we have really done. We have partnered with our customers on integrating our reach curves with television data to be able to kind of at least plan, measure, and report in a meaningful way, and deliver that in a way delivers business outcomes. We have partnered in delivering, demonstrating ROI through multiple MMMs and in a way, and I think realizing a lot more of customer first party to be able to demonstrate impact a lot more customized to the customer. But I think all these measures are increasingly, in most cases, have delivered impact, and that's what is driving digital for the ecosystem. So yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Bhaskar. And this is something which I have often spoken about, when I have been asked by clients, of other media, that, what are the kind of initiatives which you're seeing in the industry. And one thing which has always stood out for me is that the kind of concerted attempt which has been made, for the last couple of years now consistently, right? Through various initiatives to really show the efficacy of medium. So I think there is a fair degree of education, there is a fair degree of, concerted attempts which have been made, which have really worked for digital very clearly, is my observation. Okay, I'll move to our advertisers on the panel. And this question really is for Tejas, for both you and Anushree. And this is on the first party data. Now, what we understand is that there is a fair bit of first party data, which you guys are harnessing, right? And there is a big effort which is really being put in terms, in terms of how that data can be made richer, by bringing in other data assets, or also in terms of, and finally, how that data could be harnessed. So can you just talk to us very quickly in terms of how would you describe, so for example, on a scale of 1 to 10 on enrichment, would you say that, your first party data is, where does it stand on enrichment, and where does it really stand on in terms of how effectively you're using it? If you can just give us a sense of that. Anushree, should we start with you? Tejas, that's fine.
Yeah, of course.
So I think there's a little bit of a redefinition in the way not just media planning or comms planning is thought about. I think there's a redefinition in the way marketing is being thought about today. So it's not just first party data. I think the starting point now is becoming zero party data, which essentially means that you create value exchange based mechanisms and create digital assets which are then able to kind of really harness first party data and enrich it in some manner. So I think that's an evolving situation. But if you were to ask me to rate what's the readiness when it comes to the enrichment of first party data. It's actually, it's a long way, there's a long road ahead in terms of really enriching it. But yes, towards the, bottom end of the funnel, especially if you have buying destinations or experience destinations in place, you do get a sense of, what the consumer journey might look like. And those, consumer journeys can then be extrapolated towards top funnel as well. But if you were to really ask me about the scale of first party data at this point of time, yes, it is really, really large in terms of being almost the center of most of the marketing interventions. But it's fairly small when it comes to garnering scale, especially for brands which are reaching out to a large universe of audiences across age groups. So I would say, yes, there is readiness. Yes, there is thought process. Yes, there is some form of tech suite which is in place for most brands and organizations. But yeah, it's a little distance away to get a single view of the consumer journey through the funnel for most brands.
Thank you. Thanks, Anushree. Tejas?
Yeah, so I think just maybe adding to what Anushree said, there is of course a huge effort for getting more first party data, both in terms of the quality or the depth, and of course in terms of how many profiles we capture. But I just want to broaden the definition of first party here. I think when we speak as media professionals, we get obsessed with the consumer first party that we have. But as marketing organizations, there's a lot of data which we anyways have. It could be sales data, it could be retailer data. So all of that actually sits in a very comprehensive data lake as far as advertisers are concerned. I think the real challenge for us is either we get a lot of scale with our first party data, in which case, I have my own single source of truth, or then the industry kind of comes together and creates a single source of truth. So if industry creates, it's a little faster. If I create, it will take some time, but hey,
Sure.
it's mine, right? And I may not share it with Anushree then.
Or we could do retail data partnership at some point.
Maybe.
Interesting. Some good collaborations being formed here. Interesting. But thanks for your perspective on this. I think I'll stay with advertisers, and we are going to be on a hot topic of IPL now, right? Tejas, I want to start with you, which is that IPL has really evoked a fascinating response, right? Massive response among audiences. We are seeing some massive numbers which are being published by both media, right? I want to know what's your take on these numbers, and what about the metrics which are really being used? What's your perspective?
So, yeah, I think I'm very happy that the numbers are what they are. I think there was always a demand for this kind of entertainment, and thankfully IPL, all the matches have been excellent so far. So in the quality of content, even if you're just a passive viewer and not a sports enthusiast, I think the quality of content that you get to see is quite phenomenal. And I think with the data revolution, etc., mobile numbers I'm not at all surprised by. But I think it's good to see rather the increase also in TV viewership. And it's something that I think all of us have been talking about, that TV is almost like the new dining table for the family, wherein you get together as a family and watch something together. So it's heartening to see that some of it is coming true, in the sense that TV seems to be the new dining table. I think we've been talking about it for a while, but I think IPL numbers bear that out. But as I said, digital is the personal medium, and it's very accessible now. IPL this year, so I'm not surprised by the numbers at all.
All right. Thank you, Tejas. Anushree, your view on metrics.
I think just adding to what Tejas is trying to say, yes, the numbers have been huge. We've been trying to kind of make sense of the numbers in terms of putting trackers in place, and especially for the digital part of it, to make sure that the impressions, the size of the impressions are a little plausible. But yes, it has been a very impactful intervention from our end. We've invested fairly heavily on the digital part of it, and some parts of the organization has also invested in the television part of it. From a movement of metrics perspective, I think we have done a couple of measurements, and there is a mid-review in place. Seems like digital is slightly being represented. Maybe it's the panel error, or it's the constitution of the panels, so to speak. But we are really seeing both digital as well as connected TV playing a very substantial role in terms of being, the source of awareness for most of these ads. So yes, but I think it's very believable in terms of numbers.
Okay, all right. Thanks. I want to stay on. But now I want to move to publishers, and what I really want to ask you is, and Vivek, you're included in publishers, okay? Because you do have Ashtak on YouTube, and you keep on sending me those big numbers that you get, right? So okay, so I want to start with Bhaskar and move to you, and then I'll come to Pratham. I want to know that I think single source based planning is really step 2, right? For single source based planning to happen, you need you need a good TV measurement, you need a good digital measurement, you also need a good print measurement, all 3 measurements, and then you can bring all of them together, okay? I want to know that what's your comment on the state of digital measurement per se in the country today? Vivek?
So there is, so we sort of put all of this together in the sense that there is something that's coming from ComScore, there is something that we generate ourselves. So say an impression level signal is coming to us from various parts. So there is something that comes to us in a TRP form, there is something that's coming as a concurrent user, there is something coming as a PDF download marker, which could come from something like a has offer. There are these shares from the app. I get a screen view, I get a scroll, I get a session length, I get a revisit. Then we try and get household data. Then there is this co-viewing aggregated numbers. So I mean, to start everything is first to know what all inputs are you getting first. Once you get these inputs, then you put some weighting onto these inputs, for which you use some advanced techniques. So professionals like you have helped us earlier parts in our career to actually to make method in this madness by doing a real cross channel measurement whenever that comes, and not just measurement of audiences but also cross channel actions, because that gives you not just the audience but also the quality of the audience. So if I were to, as a broadcaster or a publisher, create some impact for myself or the advertiser, it's very, very important for me to put all of these together and put these together as an equivalence form. So the challenges I face today are very equal to the challenges that each of the advertisers or everybody at the panel has said, that I have a YouTube view, I have a Facebook view, I have a TV ad spot view. Now, what is bringing what to me, and is there a deduplication possible between them? And I followed Kartik's what Kartik's doing for his clients, quite phenomenal. It's actually called causal agile learning, and that's an always on learning that we also follow, where we're putting all of these inputs and then trying to put this together into a platform attribution. Once this happens, then very, very difficult questions that the industry has been actually facing, like what's the incremental reach of my connected TV feed over my TV feed. So if I'm giving you 100% more reach at 25% more money, I become more meaningful for Tejas. Now, these are things that we're trying to do. That's point number 1. The other thing that we're trying to use with the digital might of measurement that we're getting and adding into the other aggregate stuff is to actually get the industry together. So forums like these or other forums that we sort of bring together, where we're saying, so if we can have Aadhaar for identification of a citizen of India, then whether it's panel A or it's panel B or it's panel C or it's panel that is just calibrating a census data, I could have an equivalent Aadhaar for measurement. I mean, it's a long shot, but that's the way to go. I mean, that's the only way that I as a publisher will be able to not just give you a one view, but also give you my own first party data, which is more enriched than it is today, and go one step forward to help you generate your first party data by using me. So that, according to me, will be the final decisive impact that digital coming to this mix of media will be able to bring. So an interconnected effect, if I can assess with the help of each of the stakeholders here, that I think is the most interesting outcome we would want to see.
Terrific. I love the idea of Aadhaar for measurement, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Bhaskar, your reaction, please. Love to hear your reaction and what's your take on the state of digital measurement in the country?
Now, Dolly, you know this more than anyone else. I see thematically like two challenges. Number one is inconsistent data sets and capabilities across forecasting, optimization, or even reporting, which leads to a significant complexity for businesses, marketers, agencies, who have to reconcile disparate data sets, sometimes from many different providers, right? So I think while we strongly recommend prioritizing the full set of use cases, these inconsistencies remain, and I think there is a way different agencies or marketers adopt different solutions to minimize these inconsistencies, right? That's one. The second, I think, is another trend I see is a significant fragmentation of also third-party solutions and currencies. All of them are using different approaches from our lens as well. So while competition is great for driving innovation and measurement, which has also created a lot more complexity for the industry, and which will drive up costs for marketers and agencies to manage this change. So for audience measurement, we believe a more consistent approach, I like this Aadhaar protocol equivalent solution should be adopted by all, using standard definitions and principle-based measurement with a common quality bar, for campaign outputs, whether it is impressions, reach, or frequency would be ideal. But I want to sum up, like, what is lacking, I feel, is we should understand, like, audience is the king, and so we should measure it in all fair and comparable basis, and don't silo any inventory based on arbitrary concepts like production value or curation and so on and so forth. So a more principled, equitable basis of measurement which works for everybody could be the most ideal, and at least as an ecosystem we need to do more to get there.
Thank you. Thanks, Bhaskar. Yeah, lots to be done there. Amrutha, it would be good to hear your reaction. So Vivek spoke about Aadhaar of measurement, and Bhaskar has raised a fair point in terms of that. While there are different solutions which could be there, but we need a uniform solution. We cannot get to a state where cost of measurement becomes a barrier. So what do you think, should be done to really bring TV and digital together so that we can really have a cross-media view? What do we need to do?
Yeah, so I completely agree with what Vivek was saying. We believe, even from our network, we believe that the way forward has to be a common currency, right? Like I pointed out, as an answer to the first question, what in India we don't have is a common metric. There is no common currency at all between television and other mediums. So the first step evidently has to be bringing a common currency. But however, this measurement should not, just pause at counting, reach, frequency, and impressions. I've already pointed out that while Bhaskar made a comment on production value, but the fact is, keep production value aside. Again, coming back to attention, right? Like today, a consumer is willing to pay for, premium content. Like you go to a theater to watch an Avatar, for example, you get it on television after a few months, right? Whether it's an Avatar or a Pathan, why do we go for it? We go for it because we value that big screen experience, and hence we do it. So if a consumer is willing to pay for subscription and premium content, why wouldn't we value as an ecosystem, attention or any of these things? So keep aside production value, but what is important is professionally generated content, and the attention that it brings onto the table cannot be compared to the user generated content. Like, for example, there was a time, a few years ago, content or entertainment was consumed on intent. Like I budget time to consume content, but today, when you have time to kill, also you consume content. Would you attribute the same value for both? You can't bring these two together. So when we bring a metric, a common metric for the industry, and we will have to keep in mind all of these aspects and the very degree of attention it brings onto the table, from one kind of content to the platform to the device to who are you watching it with. Most important, like for example, the collective audiences it generates conversations around a brand. All of this is very crucial. So the question is, how can we make it so nuanced? And that's the question that I would want to leave with this eminent panelist. It is just not about bringing a common metric. We will need to work towards that.
Fantastic. Okay, then I think I just go to my next question, which is all about media equivalence, right? Anushree.
Dolly, can I just pitch in for a minute on the question on the state of measurement that you posed?
Yeah, sure.
I think it would be a mistake to not recognize that the current state of measurement in India is quite underwhelming, right? So if you look at for a country that's pioneered Aadhaar and UPI and whatnot, we lack our ecosystem measurement at sub-Saharan levels, right? There is no panel that allows you to even understand what is the overlap of people who are watching TV and not watching digital, right? And any small Southeast Asian countries have built this infrastructure out, and it surprises me why a country like ours can't build this out, right? If you take the best case, like the more advanced economies, etc., they are able to create real-time data, like during the Super Bowl, right? The amount of sales that are being generated during the period of an advertising campaign informs the creative that they will run, in flight, right? And while they're at that level, in our ecosystem, neither do you have a panel that can help you, understand basics of overlap of impressions, nor do we have good infrastructure to collect sales data, right? Our sales data collection mechanism are completely broken. And without that, you can't create any kind of measurement method or tool that helps you understand true ROI from the sales. So our sales data, if you take traditional offline, very noisy, very messy, comes with a lag. Online data, there is no aggregator system in place to even look at, say, modern retail data itself is not usable for measurement, right? So I would say, I think as a group, we should recognize that our infrastructure is so messy that you have to use the process that Vivek described, which is quite scary, right? Like, I think he described at least 12 data points that he has to put together to get any form of measurement up and running. And that's really a pathetic situation to be in.
Yeah. I think, Dolly, if I can have 30 seconds just to respond as
well.
Sure,
Bhaskar.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, first of all, right, if I go back in time, we did what is right for the advertiser, right? If you look at television measurement, having a sample size when the world was watching only one medium and there was a sample which representative, and it worked fine. Offline to offline attribution was fine. But if you look at the last 5 years, television watching audiences have grown at a CAGR of 2% or 2.5% to almost like 100 million users, while digital is actually in the same period has grown to 300 to now probably added even more, 50 to 100 million users more by this time. So I think any solution that we are looking at should not be should be rooted in the future, and because these audiences will continue to be more evolving and these numbers will only add up. Today, digital reaches in those remote parts of states where television could not have reached in the last 60 years, right? So I think we should not be bolting a new source of measurement on existing systems, but we should be opening it up and have a lot more customer-centric systems, and build a more holistic lens is the way I look at it. I agree. If we could solve for Aadhaar and payments and a protocol-led way of approaching, there is a opportunity of fair and equitable measurement, keeping the customer and the advertiser at the center.
Thanks, Bhaskar, and thank you, Pratham. You did paint a rather bleak picture, Pratham. So I'm not sure if I agree to everything that you said, and I'm actually quite tempted to push you back slightly and really say that, I mean, if you look at it, we do have a TV measurement which is quite solid going on in the country, right? Of course, there can be enhancements to it, but that's a journey, right? There is a digital ad measurement which is happening. A lot of advertisers, a lot of publishers, a lot of you who are sitting here are all part of it. If we really have to bell the cat, I would really say that there are big numbers which are being published on digital content, right? And these are all self-reported numbers. I mean, come on, guys, at least on this panel, let's just call that out. I mean, we really need a method to, bring a third-party measurement on those numbers, right? If we can have that for television, why can't you have that for digital, right? We have to address it. And with that, I think I'll want to request Tejas's view on this, that as a key member of ISA, what is ISA really doing to push the industry to come out quickly with a cross-media measurement? Tejas.
I think Dolly, your smile says it all. You know more than we all what's happening on this one. But maybe just for everyone's benefit. So I think we had this project about maybe 4 or 5 years ago where we tried to get cross measurement going. But due to a variety of reasons, it didn't work out. But just referring back to what Bhaskar was saying before, there are other markets which have done it now, which also means, and the global tech media giants are okay to be on those panels, which also means everybody wants to do it now, and that's what I also hear from the panel. Which means as ISA and as AAAs of I and IPTF, I think it's not a bad time to restart that discussion and possibly move at a faster pace. I think the only challenge over there again would be, going back to what we said before, if we've solved for payments natively and identification, I think even the measurement, media measurement part has to be solved by us, because the dollar pricing doesn't work in India, and maybe the dollar tech also doesn't work in India as well as the Indian tech does. So I think a bit of ingenuity and hopefully the buy-in that we have is also reflected in the boardrooms that matter. And I think we should have a cross-media measurement very soon.
Super. So so there is a silver lining. We see a lot of intent. We see a critical need. We see some examples which are really happening in other countries who are much smaller than us, but who really got onto this. So hopefully we should get onto this. Anushree, do you have any view to offer on this?
Yeah, I think I'll just add to what Bhaskar was trying to say, and of course, a third-party measurement is, of course, it goes without saying, across digital is the need of the hour. But just to kind of really think about, if you're thinking about a single source solution, it needs to be rooted a little bit in future, which also means it needs to be rooted in the assumptions need to be consumer first rather than advertiser first. Of course, it's advertiser first as an outcome, but as an input, it needs to really account for consumer behaviors. Because if you think about the way digital audiences are evolving, it is essentially evolving towards either becoming ad-free or watching a lot of not great quality content. They're actually watching more authentic, more native content on social platforms and on platforms like YouTube, right? And these are all pieces of content that advertisers are spending money on, and those impressions are impressions that you are generating to drive reach, frequency, consideration. All of those media metrics need to be moved, and hence business metrics need to be moved. So I think if single source actually accounts for consumer behavior first, and thinks about, of course, media equivalence is one of the key considerations that needs to probably form the bedrock of comparing one medium versus another, because both the mediums are drastically different. Actually, all three mediums are drastically different from each other. Digital is rooted in consumer volition. It is rooted in the power is in the hand of audiences, and the audience can really shut off advertising whenever they feel like. So I think it's really important that the assumptions are actually rooted in consumer behavior, and it is scalable for the future. So it is today true for, say, two large media platforms like Google and Meta, but tomorrow there are multiple others which are really coming in, which are going to form substantial part of an advertiser's repertoire. So how do we really make sure that this single source actually accounts for the entire ecosystem rather than just 2 or 3 pieces that we are currently talking about? Because I think it's moving at a very fast pace. Maybe TV might not, or TV viewing might just fall behind as compared to digital viewing or digital adoption and different ways of digital adoption. So I think that's my only 2 cents as a digital enthusiast, not so much as an advertiser, to be honest.
All fair points, Anushree. And definitely, I'm sure all of us on the panel definitely see the need to accelerate the attempts which the industry really needs to make to bring cross-media measurement to life quickly. I think there has been a whole host of discussion, and we should really be bringing it. I think, Mithali, I will hand it over to you. But before I hand it over to you, I just want to ask my panelists that is there any closing comment or a quick reaction which anybody wants to offer to anything?
Yeah.
Yes, Vivek.
Can I go? Okay. Most of these panels unfortunately end at saying that what's the cost of doing multimedia measurement currency. So this time I want to bring a little bit change and say that what's the cost of not doing a multimedia measurement currency. So according to one of these surveys that I just read before it came to the panel, about 70% of the money is getting wasted on marketers in the US because they don't know what part of their media mix is actually not working. And I think this 9 people strong panel is a spark enough to create this change and to bring this willingness in the country to bring this currency together. I think Pratham said it, Tejas said it, Bhaskar said it, Kartik's been doing it, Amrutha said it, Anushree said it, and Dolly obviously has been a guiding light. I think the biggest gift that this panel can give to the marketer today is to tell him what's not working for him and for how long. I think he deserves to know. That would be my comment.
And with the success of your, that was fantastic, Vivek. And with the success of your India Today conclave, I'm going to be coming to you to create the Aadhaar of measurement. Okay, we will really need some big time data for that, right? And we will really be, I'll definitely want to tap your brains into that. Okay, all right. Any other closing comment from any panelists before I hand it over to Mithali?
Yeah, I think firstly, this has been phenomenal, right? And all of you are partners, so big. I'm very grateful. As I said, we have always done what is right at the phase of the industry, and I think this is a new phase of the industry. And there are no perfect solutions, but I always believe progress is better than perfection, and I think we should embrace that for the simple reason that if you look at any reports right now, India is very under indexed when it comes to ads as a percentage of GDP, and we all look at that number. We are just debuted into the top 10 markets, global AdX, and growing faster, which is very different compared to other markets, emerging or developed. So there's a long road ahead for advertising and marketing in this country. The faster we enable some of these principle-based approaches, just the way an Aadhaar or a UPI unlocked a revolutionary way of participation, I think there is an opportunity for this also to evolve. And as my closing comments is like progress is better than perfection, and hopefully we'll move forward as an ecosystem.
Very important point. Progress is better than perfection. Yes, we definitely need to bear that in mind. Kartik, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, while the intent of wanting to, so the simple question is, do we all want a measurement system which will a single source system? The easy answer is yes, but there are various steps, and I think some of the answers are not going to come from the traditional so-called research companies. It's going to come from the new India, the new startups, which actually there are tons of them which are doing some great work on the data space. Whether it is collection of sales, which Pratham spoke, there are many players. Some have found smart workarounds, and in that ecosystem, there is going to be opportunity. But there are even basic building blocks. For example, even after so many years, we don't have a credible aligned, let's say, a digital AdX. If I want to know what is the reach or frequency for my client, as basic as that, I first need to get that basic block correct. We have a few attempts, but it's nowhere near at least 80-90% acceptance. So we'll have to break the complex problem into small, meaningful milestones. The intent is there, and then get one after the other. And the truth be told, I think I don't want to be a spoil sport, but money is still a concern, right? Sorry, Vivek, this is one point I have a slightly different view. It will cost. We all have a good sense of how much, say, the current TV system costs. My guess is this will cost at least a 2x or a 3x, and somebody has to fund it. That's the elephant in the room. We all talk about this, but finally the guys who are going to write the checks are not in this call, and they need to probably listen to this. And yes, the perspective that 70 or 80% of the money is wasted is something that we can keep going back to them and telling them, and maybe that is the revolution that will come back. But someone will have to write the check 2x, 3x, 4x. I don't know. It will be a factor over whatever we are spending today. But yeah, but what I will take back, and the assurance in some sense, is that if India can't do, no country can do. So we are the jugaad country. We will find the solution. If we have found UPI, we will find 100%. I have no doubt about the collective might of the Indians to find a solution. That's the easy problem. The funding is still one elephant, but there are building blocks as simple as one add X, and then on top of it something else, and then we need to adding those building blocks to have a comprehensive system.
Thanks, Kartik. You're heard loud and clear. Mithali, over to you, please.
Thank you so much for giving us your Friday evening. When we suggested this first, it was brought to my attention that everyone would rather be drinking and relaxing after a long, tiring week. So thank you so much for being here, every one of you: Anushree, Amrutha, Vivek, Ramesh, Kartik, Tejas, Pratham. Thank you so much for being here. Dolly, thank you so much for shouldering the load of handling this very, very important and a topic with multiple views. But the fact that MRS I found really important is that these views need to be aired. You know, there are checks and balances, there are opposing views, and you know, if we don't take this on as the Market Research Association, who quite honestly has progressed beyond what you call traditional research. We're talking about analytics, we're talking about passive data, and I mean, this is very much our wheelhouse. So thanks a million. Thank you so much, all of you. And audience, thank you so much for being here, where we hope that you at least have been able to drink and start your Friday evening while you're listening to us. And with this, we close our International Market Research celebrations for the year. We'll have something similar next year. If you want to catch up on the events that we've had, it's all available for catch-up viewing on our YouTube channel. You can go on to our website, mrsi.co.in. We're there for you at any time of the day or night that you want to find us and catch up on our content. Thanks a million. Thanks all.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.